3, 2, 1.
Hi, welcome to Dogman Teepee Hunting and Friday Night Files. If you're listening to this, it'll be on the Interdimensional Voyagers podcast. Hope you had a good week. It's the weekend, thank goodness. Couldn't come quick enough, to be honest. This week, been talking to a guy, Pete Jennings. I think you've probably seen all the adverts and stuff I put out on Facebook and stuff about it. Very, very lucky to have him on. Lovely guy. Although he has trimmed his beard, and a lot of the AI I used was with a big bushy beard, and he's gone and trimmed it. So, but it looks younger for it, which is great. So I'm going to bring on co-host first of all and see how what sort of week she's had. Natalie Molesley. Oh, hello.
I waved, but I didn't speak.
Oh,
but then I realised
okay.
I was muted anyway. So it's just
Yeah, I thought I'd just sort of I thought I'd just mute that momentarily. That's while the intro is running. That's all, because it mutes everybody, but then after it like kind of ends, it doesn't, and it's like, you know, if you sort of burp or fart or spit or whatever, you know, wouldn't be great, I suppose. Or is that just me?
That's not ideal.
How are you anyway?
Oh, I'm not too bad at the moment, thank you. I've actually managed to do some gardening without getting rained on for a change as well, which is a bonus. But yeah, so living the wildlife.
Yeah. How's your horses?
Yeah, he's all right at the moment. He's on 4 legs now, so that's a bonus. But yeah.
Have you got somewhere to put him when it rains?
They're on a
track. In the front lounge.
Well, I wouldn't like him in my front lounge, wouldn't trust him. But they're on a track system, so it's like alongside a railway track. So they've got a barn at one end, and it's trees all the way down. So they
Yeah.
don't. They're sort of loose outside, but they can go in the barn if they want. If it's really bad, but they're all pretty tough down there now. They've got used to it, the outside life. So he doesn't like going in the stable anymore unless there's food in there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah.
I'll spin you across because you got the comments. If I put myself that way, that's it. That's better. There you go, like that. Yeah. Well, funny enough, Natalie, I've been perusing the internet.
Oh wow!
And
Well
yeah,
done.
I've been having a little look at the internet and different things, going on. What people have, gotten up to, Natalie. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just want to show you, show the people at home a little clip I happened to spot. Let's have a look. I can't play this one. Oh, here we go.
Covell, was it? And I think I've heard of him. I'm not really sure. Can't be that good.
No, it's only good because I'm on there now. I've
I
told
can
him
believe
that.
that.
I'm taking the show. It's my show now.
Good. It'll get better. It'll get more views then.
I know. I'm just sitting there waffling like this for an hour every week.
He said to me he's got a Natalie bell or something. He has to ring it or something.
Oh yeah, when I'm talking too much. That's you. I was starting to understand
Well,
now.
he's just as bad. So I'm glad he's not his match. Yeah.
That's what I said. I
Yeah,
said, you
it
get
is.
I'm getting a bell back.
He loves the sound of his own voice. Never
Yeah,
mind.
it's quite funny. One of the shows we were on, he went off on a tangent like he does. And one of the comments was like, let Natalie get a word in edgewise, Phil.
That was me.
I was just like, I was like, yes.
Phil Covell, was it? And I think I've heard of him. I'm not really sure.
My conspiracy.
Right. I'll just stop that now because that's enough of that nonsense. Yeah. That was,
AI. It's all AI. You can't believe anything you see on the internet. It's clearly AI generated. Don't believe it.
That was. I must admit that was that did make me chuckle.
Yeah,
Sort of.
it went in a
Yeah.
direction I wasn't expecting, and by the time it come out my mouth, and then I remembered about Colin, and I was like, "Oops, I'm gonna get trouble with this one then."
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
laughing on the inside though.
No, I'll bet you're not.
No. Anyway, shall we bring on our guest?
Yes, bring
Okay,
on.
okay. Let's bring on Mr. Pete Jennings. Hello, Pete. Oh, hang on, one minute. I muted you as well. Oh, such a dingbat. Hello, hey Pete.
Hello.
Thank you for coming on, Pete.
Can you hear me, Mother?
Yeah,
It's all right.
Yeah. Can hear you. Yeah. Not too bad at all. Yeah. How are you, mate? I think your internet is a little bit glitchy.
Well, all this talk of AI and so on, of course, you don't really know that it's the real me. I could be my own tribute act. Hey, bands have tribute acts. Why shouldn't I send out a tribute person? I'll get a bit old, They probably do it better than me. I can sit back here dribbling on me cardi, and
I was going to say,
there's the tribute acts sometimes get more money than the original rock bands used to get.
Yeah. That's a good point, actually. Perhaps we should replace Phil. We could have an AI Phil. He's got all the buttons at the moment, so I suppose I better behave myself.
Well, maybe Phil will prove to us that he's not AI already.
Wow, it does sometimes glitch. That's what we were joking about with Colin. It's like he does sometimes glitch, and you can kind of tell when he's glitching. So maybe he is AI, and I just don't know.
Yeah, that's right. Max Headroom. Who remembers Max Headroom?
Oh God, yeah. That's going back a bit now, isn't it?
Yeah. Right. Okay. Now, people at home, with Pete. Okay, he's a prolific author. Now I'm going to put up a QR code. So use your phones, and if you're on your phone watching this, you could always screenshot. Okay, but anyway, the down in the description is going to be Pete's Amazon website links, everything like that. But I'm just going to put up his QR so that if you want to have a little peruse yourself, you can do. Here we go. That's that. And so just use your phone if you want, and you can go and have a look at that. Where is it? There you go. There you go. That's his Amazon books. I'm going to have a little, bring those up just to have a little look and see at those. Let's have a look. Right, because I want to ask Pete a couple of things. Right, okay. Pete. First of all, you're from Ipswich, aren't you? Pete, have I dropped off?
I'm not sure.
Pete?
Yeah.
Oh, good. You're there. Excellent. No, that's brilliant. You're from Suffolk, aren't you?
Originally, yeah. But I've lived just over the Essex border for about the last 30 years. But I still regard myself as a Suffolk boy, and still got a lot of links back to there. I'm only about 6 miles over the border, but it's a long 6 miles, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
The country 6 miles, isn't it?
I used to live in down Brantford Road in Ipswich. Do you know that road?
Yeah, know it well.
Yeah. So I
used to have a pub called the
enough.
Rose and Crown at the top of it on one end, on the Norwich Road end.
Yeah, and I think there was a pub called the Spotted Cow.
And that was where the Ipswich Folk Club used to be.
Was it?
Yes. Now the Spotted Cow, for many years, that was run by one of my relatives, who sort of they came there in the 1800s and stayed for about 100 years before moving on. So they had the Howe family.
Yeah, it was quite a rough area when I was there. It could have been just me because I moved in. It became rough. I don't know, but it was a bit. I lived up towards the traffic light. There's some traffic lights as you're going into town, and it goes up a slight hill. And on the right hand side, a small parade of shops. And one of those shops used to be a laundrette, and I used to live above there.
Yeah,
I used to live in the flat above there.
Oh right, yeah.
That's
that was a rough bit of Ipswich. That I come from the really rough bit of Ipswich, Gainsborough Estate, Landseer Road, and yeah. I mean, if I tell you, I was the only lad that went to grammar school for about 4 square miles. So every time I went out my door, I was a target. You know, bricks had come flying over. Yeah, and these were lads I'd been to junior school with, but you know, and so you know, you're always all posh. You know, he's going to the grammar school now. My dad was a bus cleaner, for goodness sake. And then of course, when I got to the grammar school, it was it's that oik off the council estate. So you know, I couldn't win really.
Was it there that you first started? I'm asking this because Ipswich is synonymous with
it's all gone quiet.
Ancient
I don't know if anything's happening.
Witchcraft and you know, they call it the cauldron. Locals call it the cauldron. You know, years ago, not anymore, but they used to use it. You used to call it the cauldron because it was kind of like in a slight hollow, the middle of Ipswich, and then surrounded by there was higher ground around it. That's what I was told. But was it there that you first started?
I heard it called the cauldron when I lived there.
Did you not? Interesting. Yeah, it was a
I'm only hearing about one word in 5.
Sorry?
Phil, I'm only hearing about one word in 5.
Oh yeah, okay. Right, let's just check. Have a little look and check and see. Right, yeah. No, our side seems okay. You can hear me, can you, Natalie?
Yeah, I can hear everyone.
Okay, right. It might just be, it may just, maybe your internet's a little bit glitchy, Pete. Pete.
Yeah, should be strong signal.
Yeah, might be a bit glitchy. Should we continue and see how it goes?
Sometimes dropping out, coming back in again.
Yeah. Or another thing is, if you're using a PC, close off any non-essential windows on your PC. So if you look at the top, have a little look at the windows that are open, and close a lot of those off.
Yeah,
So
everything else is closed. Everything else is closed.
Okay then. All right then. Okay. So all right, that's not a problem then. That's good. It might sort itself out. It may sort itself, or like Natalie said, by popping out and coming back in again. Hold on. Just unmuted. Yeah. Okay. Unmute microphone. Okay, right. It looks like he's just muted himself. I'm not sure. Sign language. Maybe I should get those. Natalie, do you think I should get those signs you put up, next time? Where you just like,
I've got one that says "Help me."
no, that might be quite handy.
Although I'd have to write it backwards, wouldn't I? Because these screens are reversed, I think, aren't they? So yeah, I'd have to write backwards. Possibly.
No, no. I think they are as they are. Right hand. Is that right hand to you?
Well, this is what I was trying to work out when I was in the back room, because I was just like trying to get the camera square, and it didn't seem to matter which way round I faced. I wasn't square to the camera. So I'm sitting at a slight angle at the moment so that I look straight. It's quite bizarre.
I think Pete's gone. I think he's going to come back. So I'm going to.
He comes back, yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
because we do everything we look at is upside down anyway.
what, literally upside down?
Yeah, literally upside down.
All right.
So everything that you're looking at now, and everything when you're doing your daily life, it's actually, for our eyes, it's upside down. That's how we view it. But it's our brain that processes it and turns it around the right way.
All right. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, everything we look at, because of the way our iris is and our cornea, and the way light comes into our eye, it comes out everything. If you imagine, if it was a camera, it'd be upside down. It's only our brains that process that information and spin it around the right way.
Yeah, because I suppose it goes in and bounces off things, doesn't it? So it's quite surprising what the brain does actually manage on a day-to-day basis when you actually find out this stuff. You think it's a wonder I could like walk from one bit of the room to another, let alone interpret everything. But
do you know, it's a flipping miracle some mornings how I can get up and put my socks on.
Yeah, it's like, and then when you learn all these little facts about what the body's actually doing to get you to do that, you think, well, it's no wonder it's glitching right now.
I know.
Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And right, okay, I'm just putting a note up and try coming in again. Right. Okay. Right then. That's good. Right then. Well, what we can do, I'm going to put up some bits and bobs. Let's have a look. That I've been looking at this week anyway, because I saw a few things that were interesting. Right. First off, that is Pete Jennings' Facebook. okay, for people at home. So if you wanted to say hello to him, you may not know a lot about him at the moment because he's disappeared, but hopefully he'll come back on again. That's his Facebook page. Got a lot of mutual friends. Not that one, but or that one. Definitely not that one. Pete Jennings. Yeah. So oh, that's lovely. Look at that. Oh, that's lovely. Yeah. So right. Okay. So I'm just going to show you some of the things that I spotted on my feed. Yeah, that thing as well. Let's have a look. A quick one. In recent weeks, the claim that major governments and corporations are preparing to launch a fake space invasion aimed at uniting the planet under one authority and justifying global military operations has resurfaced. The assumption gained momentum following Marco Rubio's statement. That would be, I think, in the film Disclosure, which is a really good documentary film. Flipping expensive, but a lot of work went into it. And I saw that last weekend when it came out. It was very good. Like I'd done a short video explaining my thoughts on it, and it doesn't give any answers, but it does put some more weight behind the movement for disclosure because it's got so many prominent people, which
is it like summing up the more recent events and statements and things of people to put it into like
yeah, kind of. I tell you what, it's a bit of a what it is, it's got people, it hasn't got David Grosh in it, or but it's got a lot of the senators which were in the congressional committee. It's got a lot of first-hand reports from the pilots and from military personnel and security personnel who they don't give any answers. They don't give any new reports. They just give their old reports. But because they're all combined, Natalie, they're all, if you like, of good standing. The prominent people who are all giving their own direction of thought, and their direction of thought is there is something there. Information is being withheld, and they're collectively all asking for disclosure.
Yeah, it's quite interesting how a lot more of them seem to be getting braver about speaking up. Even if they're not giving facts, there's an awful lot more of them being a bit less vague, aren't they, about things? Whereas before they used to be quite vague, whereas now they seem, it's more and more people are suddenly saying, like say, they see it's old news, but they're now actually saying it fresh. Sort of like, no, it really was something there, even though like my report says that I can't say what it was. But it's it's quite curious how they're all getting brave now compared to before.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's I've
to say that there was something worth looking at, even if they can't disclose what it was. Whereas before they wouldn't even allowed to say that in a way, a lot of them. So, it is quite interesting.
Granted, a lot of the people that we see, you can see without seeing disclosure, you can see a lot of the people who have previously stated the same thing, individually in interviews and such. You can peruse the social media and see what they say, but this is collectively to be put into this documentary, and it was like about an hour and a half, I think, maybe a bit longer.
Okay.
It was a long one, and it had the really great soundtrack. The editing was fabulous, and if you can imagine that it's almost a tour de force of high-ranking official people all collectively basically saying that there is UFOs, aliens, which the government know about, and collectively asking for disclosure. You know, they're kind of saying we should know this thing. We should know what's going on. So you know, it's oh, got Pete. Let's have a look. Let's turn this off. Right. Hold on. It's getting his internet. Evidently, Roxy came up, Natalie, and said that someone knocked on the front door, and it was BT. And BT said, "We're just doing work at the moment, and your internet may go on."
I have to admit, mine's been glitchy all day, so I was a bit worried that my connection would be a bit rubbish. So
Yeah,
it was inevitable.
it's just gremlins tonight. Hey, Pete.
Yeah.
Pete. Peter picked a pickle pepper. Pickle pepper.
Piper
Hello.
picked. Can you hear us? Is it any better?
Pete.
Hello again.
Hello again. Okay. Yeah. Right. We'll take things slowly because I think your internet is still a bit not that great. You seem to be a little bit delayed. Can you hear me okay, Pete?
You're a bit quiet.
I'm quiet. All right. Okay. Is your volume up on your PC? All right. Hey, Pete.
Hi.
Okay, let me just check. Let me just check, see what's happening here. Right, okay. You're on 480p, and I'm gonna just try turning up your mic from here. Okay, right. Can you Pete, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you better now, thanks.
Okay, right, that's good. All right then, I'll take your photo. Brilliant. All right then. All right then. Now, Pete, you're a pagan.
Yeah.
Okay, great. When did you get into the pagan normality? Pagan. What? How do you say it?
Paganism.
Pagan normality. How did you get into the whole pagan normality business?
Well, I suppose, you know, I mean, I was brought up in the Church of England normally and was sort of quite involved until I got to about, I don't know, 14, 15. And like most strawberry teenagers, sort of started questioning everything. I was fortunate because I had quite a good vicar and he would discuss anything with me, you know. But eventually, I suppose I sort of disagreed with more than I agreed with. And I looked around other religions, all sorts, you know, Buddhism, Hindu, Catholic, you know, all sorts. And I suppose I found sort of paganism was the nearest match to what I felt. But didn't really do a lot about it other than read for years and years, because by then I'd got a girlfriend and she wasn't really comfortable with other stuff. We got married when I was 21. I was married for about 14 years and still continued reading and thinking, but not really doing anything. And eventually, after about 14 years of marriage, divorced, which then gave me a chance to sort of, you know, look to do practical things as opposed to just theoretical. And so from about the like 1980s, and I always felt that I wanted to follow a more sort of heathen path, which in those days was known as Odinism, which since then has got renamed several times from Asatru and the northern tradition and that, and nowadays is known as heathen or heathenry, which is what I am, sort of the Anglo-Saxon and Norse mythology and so on. But in the meantime, I'd learned a lot about the other sorts of paths of paganism, the Druidry and the Wicca and for many, many years. I didn't really become active until probably about 1988, 1989, that sort of time, and started to network with people, and ended up running things on a local basis, a local group and moots and so on, and a little conference, and eventually ended up being involved in the Pagan Federation, which is sort of networking organisation that covers all the different paths across Britain and Europe, and from press officer went on to become the president.
President, wow. Okay. To become the president, did you have to be nominated, or did you have to go through a ritual to do that? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of sat on various committees and so on, and they'd never had anybody who was a heathen as a president before. They'd mostly been one sort of witch or another. So, when I went in, it was, the mad axeman cometh, sort of thing. It was time for quite a lot of changes within the Pagan Federation, and so it was quite an interesting thing. And of course, I ended up working with the people who were the sort of leaders within the Druid community and the witch community and the shamans and the eclectics and so on. And we were going through quite a lot of battles at the time with authority and getting recognised by the Home Office and so on. So as I say, interesting time, bit fraught at times, but so glad I did it.
Yeah. So basically, just to recap, it was you were married, you had a divorce, and I missed the part of how you became why you became a pagan. I missed that part.
I think one of the things is, having been involved in the Church of England, I felt it was rather unbalanced. There's a lot of good people there, but women seem to be very second class, and it seemed to be a very masculine defined religion. I wasn't really happy with that. You got to remember, this is the 60s I'm talking about, when women were burning their bras and becoming liberated and so on.
Yeah.
And they seem to be completely outside of that and seem to ignore it, which I thought was very unfortunate. I mean, I still respect them as a spiritual path. I'm not against any spiritual path. Most spiritual paths, haven't it? In fact, my own daughter is a Baptist minister. The ultimate in teenage rebellion. My dad's the head of the Pagan Federation. What shall I do? I'll go to theological college and become a minister.
Pete, what responsibilities did you have as the the head of the Pagan Federation? Was there any specific responsibilities? Did you have to, for instance,
some responsibilities and absolutely no power whatsoever? I was the only one in meetings who didn't get a vote. As president, you sort of acted bridge between the different traditions, helped to provide a lead in the things that they were doing, like talking within the different pagan paths, but also talking to other religions. And I can remember a wonderful day I spent with the secretary of the World Hindu Organization, who wanted to meet, his counterpart in this country, because he regarded Hinduism as a form of paganism, because it's got lots of gods and goddesses and so on. So, there was things like that. But I also found myself arguing with lawyers and the courts who were wanting to take children away from mothers because they were witches. And we spent quite a lot of time trying to get legislation within the employment legislation so that pagans would be treated fairly at work and not lose their jobs. And got involved in a few cases of that. A lot of the cases we dealt with weren't publicised because there was children involved, and you don't publicise children's names and so on. So a lot of what we done was sort of very direct, giving information to lawyers, to courts, to social workers. And of course, eventually, I changed career completely and became a social worker myself, which is what I spent the last years of my employment doing. In fact, I was a safeguarding social worker for adults until I retired. I was 65. I'm 72 now, so I've been retired a few years.
Any questions, Natalie?
No, I'm just processing the whole, because I've never heard that, like people being taken to court because they were witches and having their kids taken away. I've not heard that.
It used to happen. If you got a couple divorced, a couple who divorced, and the father wanted to get the children, he would just point and go, well, she's a witch, she's not fit to have them. And some courts would accept that.
Wow.
So we had to at it and say, well, what if it had said she's a Hindu or a Sikh or a Buddhist, and so on. But aren't witches all devil worshippers of that? No, they're not. And so we come up with some very boring looking information packs that sort of said what paganism was and also what it wasn't. And sort of by pushing these, and also, of course, the job with the press. I spent 3 years as press officer before I was president, and which I was suited to because I'd done radio shows for 20 years. I'd written newspaper columns and so on. So I knew how to approach it, I suppose, and so on, and challenging the press and saying, well, come on, give us an equal hearing. And so I used to do loads and loads of radio interviews, particularly around Halloween, but also trained lots of other people around the country to do radio interviews, because they normally want somebody that's local to them on local radio, not somebody talking to them from a very long distance away. So that was quite a joy within the job of training people to speak up for themselves.
It's curious, isn't it, how witchcraft in particular is had so much discrimination, and like you say, you could turn around and say you was a Buddhist and it wouldn't class in a court of law as a problem. But for some bizarre reason, witchcraft specifically seems to be, even now to a lesser degree, it's slowly starting to sort of be less of a thing, but it is still, you forget how recent really the anti-witchcraft thing has gone up to, don't you, until you sort of hear things like that. And then you're just like, it wasn't really that long ago, was it? It's
when I came into paganism in the 80s, most pagans who were organisers used a post office box number to communicate through, and most people used a pseudonym as well because of the warrior backlash. I mean, I've got a friend who had a shop in Dartford in Kent, who was firebombed simply because it was a pagan shop. And other pagan shops across the years have had people protest and go into. I was at a pagan conference in Croydon a few years, only about 3 or 4 years ago, where there was a very vocal protest outside the Fairfield Halls, because they were convinced we were sacrificing virgins and, you know, eating babies and so on.
To be fair, yeah,
But
the
that's quite
80s.
untrue, because we were actually eating the virgins and, you know, but
Yeah,
yeah,
was it?
you know, that people can still do those sorts of things.
I was going to say, was it the 80s that had the satanic panic in it anyway? I think.
Yeah,
Was it the
yeah.
80s? Yeah. So
Which a lot of it was stirred up by a couple of organisations where they tried to do this in the States and have been pretty much laughed out of court, you know, because the CIA was detailed to look into it and couldn't find anything, you know, and so some of the people came over here and started inviting social workers to very nice conferences with lots of nice free food and a good hotel room and so on, and telling them, you know, there's a Satanist on every corner, you know, 1 in 10 people is a Satanist.
Wow.
Yeah, you know, and so on. So we had to combat all of that and challenge it, you know, and so on. And of course, some people believe what they want to believe, you know, and there's still people who believe those things out there.
Interesting. Right. Okay, because I mean, I was Church of England, and so I had my fair share of sitting down in the morning, listening to Cat Stevens songs, you know, and all singing together. Morning has broken. So you know, I get it that it's some the.
Of course, he's a Muslim
priest.
Cat Stevens is a Muslim now. You must understand.
Yes, he is. Yeah, he is. Yeah. But you know, and there is an awful lot in the church which is kind of broken. You know, I mean, our local priest at the time in Holy Cross, this was, he was, believe it or not, absolute Marxist. And had terrible trouble, you know, very friendly, evidently, with a certain head teacher of mine, but at the time. But yeah, there's a lot of, you know, stuff which is broken in that was broken in the Christian church. I get that at the time, because I'm going back to the 70s, you know, and I knew it even then. You know, I could recognise how broken and devoid of the true meaning of the church at that time, that it was lost to a certain degree. So I can see where you sort of veered away. I can see why you veered away. One thing I wanted to ask you though about I can see I just wanted to ask you, you know, when a married couple and they have problems and they got kids, and the husband leaves or the wife leaves with the kids, and the guy turns around and says she's a witch. It's not quite the same as saying she's a Muslim. It's not quite the same as saying that she's a Buddhist. It's not, because by saying that is recognized, by saying that someone's a Buddhist, it's recognized as a religion more so than an art. Is there a difference between paganism, witchcraft, being a art more than?
I'm not hearing half of you, Phil, again. I'm not hearing half of you. I'm going to assume what you're on about is getting religion. One of the things that the Pagan Federation was very keen was to get the government to legally accept paganism as a religion. And some people said, why? You know, we don't give a toss. And we said, yes. And what came about in the end is the government's prison service, they got pagan prisoners who said they wanted pagan chaplains in the prison because they didn't want a Christian chaplain because they weren't Christian. And so we worked with the Home Office to provide pagan chaplains. They appointed them, but the Pagan Federation actually recommended the people that they appointed and so on. And through that way, the Home Office recognised paganism, which seemed to be quite a small thing. But once one bit of the government recognises it, then the rest of the government has to fall in step because they don't like to disagree, between departments. And of course, they were then paying people quite a decent rate per hour to go in and be pagan chaplains. And this carried through to the, was also recognised for the hospitals, the NHS as well. And in fact, I used to be a pagan chaplain for about 3 prisons. So the fact they then recognised it, then you can do things with it. And we then done things with it in getting paganism recognised within the Employment Act. It took 7 years. And in between whilst the government changed, so you had to go back to start, do not collect £200 and work your way up through contacts and meetings and so on, until we finally got one sentence in the Employment Act that said you can't discriminate against people for their religion, whether that be pagan, Hindu, or no religion at all, atheist, and so on. And the majority of pagans didn't know much about it because they weren't members of the Pagan Federation, or they never read the articles or anything. But that's had long-lasting effects. And in fact, about a year after that went into legislation, a gentleman who had been discriminated against working for British Rail, they took British Rail to court. Of course, British Rail had got barristers akimbo. They employ them all the while, very well paid, top ones. And they soon had to have recognised that they were beaten. And so this man was apologised to and compensated. And once British Rail has been found, hell, you can't muck pagans about. Then, of course, lots of other employees thought, well, we're not going to get in that same trap, and rapidly backpedaled, and suddenly they recognised people who were pagan and people who were gay and people who were all sorts of things. And that's what's carried on since that day. But it took a lot of volunteers working for a very long time. And don't forget, the Pagan Federation has always run by volunteers and not paid people. I used to have to take days off work to go up to Whitehall, and have a meeting, and so did lots of other people. And that is not to say that I totally agree with every.
Pete, you said that they got paid to be a minister to go and see the prisoners.
Yeah.
Why did they get paid?
Because all chaplains get paid within the prison service. I mean, you was taking time off work. You was driving there in your own car. You got to be recognised professionally so that they could give you a set of keys and a walkie-talkie. Yeah.
Okay.
Why shouldn't you get recognised as a professional, just like any other professional going in there from a Muslim or a Hindu or a Christian?
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with taking money for a professional service. I mean, the fact is, I was a qualified counsellor, psychotherapist as well. And I certainly wouldn't do that for nothing more than working as a social worker.
Sure. Yeah. How difficult was it to if there was an accusation of a lady being a witch by her husband? How would you have gone about proving that she wasn't?
I wouldn't go about proving that she wasn't. I would say, yeah, she said she's a witch, so what?
No, I just thought you said that there was cases where, which was a bit shocking, really, that there was cases where couples would split up, and the husband would turn around and say that, well, she's a witch. And it would then be, they would call the pagan.
Well, it was in cases where the woman did identify as a witch. She wasn't denying she was a witch, but what she was denying that her children should be taken away from her because she was a witch.
Right. Okay. So I just wanted to clarify that. I didn't quite understand. Yeah. Right. Okay. That's fine. All right then. Was there any other instances, being head of the federation? Was there any instances where you had where you were called upon to have any meetings with government bodies? Did they call upon you to gain any knowledge or
Yeah,
ask
so
for
I was
any
asked.
experience?
I was asked for opinion quite often. Not,
Right.
for instance, we have a thing in this country. We don't openly carry weapons about, do we? It's not like America where you can walk down the high street with a 6-gun tied to your belt, So there was a problem in this country that people were saying, well, we want to take a ritual knife to a ritual that we're going to hold out in the woods, and we think we should be able to. And the police were asking, well, is that a thing? Do you use knives within rituals? In fact, the Sikhs had the same problem because the Sikhs carry a small knife. It's part of their religious identity and so on. So we said, well, there's got to be some common ground. We don't expect our pagans to go around waving knives or swords or whatever about in public. So we advise they should keep them wrapped up in a shopping bag or something, until they get there. And the police said, yeah, that seems quite reasonable. And in fact, we started talking to police forces, and now, in fact, there is a police pagan organisation within the National Police Force. And so they've got policemen that they can go to and be advised, who are pagans themselves. It's a guy called Andy Pardy, who's done some tremendous work, and he advises the police forces about what's reasonable and what's not reasonable. And no, this guy's just, saying that he's no more pagan than I am, because there's people who will try and use that as an excuse. And he will advise the prison service, as I do. And in fact, funnily enough, I've advised the prison service in the United States because they've had problems and they don't really have people that they trust to be a source of neutral information there. So they will come to us good old English people. Because what happened in the American prison services, there was a lot of black prisoners who formed alliances, very often black Muslim organizations. And so some of the white prisoners said, well, we want to do something. And so they formed organizations that were very often very racist white nationalist organizations. And so I got asked, is this a proper religion they're doing, and so on. So this does have, big ramifications as to what happens in these prison services.
Interesting. Okay. Was there ever any instances of any government bodies approaching you because of maybe roadworks going through sacred lands, or maybe they wanted your advice over certain situations that you came across?
Yeah, I mean, at the time when there was quite a few road protests, I'm thinking of Oxley's Wood and places like that, Twycross Down, they were quite concerned that they would suddenly find themselves with a large pagan population in jail, because the police were going to have to arrest people if they broke the law in these protests. In fact, that never really happened in the end, but they were concerned about it, and that was one of the things that prompted them to start looking at having pagan chaplains. Because I can tell you, as a pagan chaplain, I never had more than 5 pagans in a jail. And most times it was only 2 or 3. And most of them weren't arrested as pagans. They'd gone into jail as, no particular religion, had time to think and read, and had become pagans or had become interested in paganism once they got into prison, and then wanted somebody, that they could talk to about it. And probably were gravely disappointed when they didn't get some wonderfully nubile pagan priestess turn up, but got yours truly with a beard and a limp. Yeah.
Did the because paganism is quite a broad. It's a little bit like Hinduism, I suppose. It's quite a broad sort of like area. Did everyone have trouble defining what paganism actually encompassed? Because it is so.
It's a perennial problem. It's a perennial problem. I mean, at one time, the Pagan Federation used to have 3 principles that people were supposed to sign up to belong to the Pagan Federation. And obviously, I mean, Pagan Federation is only joined by a very, very, very small percentage of pagans. I think the Pagan Federation currently now is down to about 2,000 members, but the census tells us that there's 100,000 in the last census of different pagan paths. But it works for those pagans who don't belong to it as much as the ones who do, So you used to have these 3 principles that, that there'd be goddesses as well as gods, and that you would revere and respect nature, and also that there was something beyond human understanding that covered all these things. Various people, including myself, criticised this a bit because heathens in particular had a problem with it, and so on. So now in England and Wales, the Pagan Federation has it incorporated into its papers that, this is a good thing, but you don't have to swear by it. In Scotland, it's different because they set up something a bit different when the Scottish Parliament came about. They got in early. And so in Scotland, you can officially get married as a pagan. It's recognised as a legal marriage, a hand fasting, whereas in England, it's not at the moment, although that might change over the next year or two. So, yes, defining what a pagan is. The president of the Pagan Federation, a guy called Tony Meadows, who was president before me, when he handed over to me, said, "Well done, Pete, congratulations, good luck with it. It's like herding cats."
That's what I was thinking, because I know...
And that's true, very true, because, I wouldn't want to be defined by anybody else. And in fact... I'm very well known as a heathen. I've written lots of books and given lectures, but half the heathens I know would say, you might be heathen, but you're not my sort of heathen. We're all different, and we are. And I wouldn't want to legislate and say everybody's got to be my sort of heathen. Heaven forbid.
Because my understanding was that heathenry is quite individualistic, isn't it, in many ways?
It is.
Yeah, it's sort of like could you explain the difference between paganism and heathenry briefly? Because all I know about heathenry is that they're a lot more independent-minded. Like it's sort of like, I follow my path.
I think the word is bloody-minded, actually. I think the word is bloody-minded.
I was being polite.
If we go back to basics, look, pagan comes from the Latin Roman word pagani, which means of the countryside. And basically, it was a pejorative term. It was the Romans in the towns going, we're all sophisticated. We worship the emperor now. And there's these funny little people in the countryside, sort of rustics, and they still worship, trees and waterfalls and stuff. Okay, so that's the Latin term. If we look at heathen, it comes from the same sort of root, but it's a Germanic term, meaning the people out there on the heath. We sophisticated Germanic tribesmen, doing our thing, but out there on the heath, there's these rustics worshipping waterfalls and trees and things. So they both mean the same sort of thing, but in different languages. and they're both pejorative terms, but have been reclaimed by the followers, as legitimate terms, in the same way that early Christians, the Romans or the Greeks going, oh, look at that weird Middle Eastern sect there. That will never catch on.
That's very true.
On a slightly on that sort of vein, anyway. But I just wondered, in the Christian worldview, because I know the time's getting on. I just wanted to. I had a few questions I wanted to ask, and in the Christian worldview, a demon is a fallen angel or a creature of pure evil.
Yeah.
In the Northern tradition, you deal with giants like Jotna. And dark elves. Is demon just a label we put on things we don't understand, or is there a specific entity in Norse law that equates to pure malevolence?
Depends which heathen you ask, really. I mean, me personally, I acknowledge lots of different entities, whether they be Thurs giants or elves or whatever. But it's then how I regard them. Whether you believe in gods outside yourself, the old man in the garden sort of idea, or whether you regard them as inside yourself. Now, as a form of shorthand, I'm quite willing to talk about Thor, for instance, or Thunor, if you take the Anglo-Saxon, as, red-headed, bearded god with a hammer in his hand who goes around smashing things that ain't right. And that's a handy shorthand. But within myself, I think about Thor as a part of myself that's righteous anger. If you see something that's wrong, a kid being hit or whatever, there's a certain inherent feeling that's not right, and so on. And as a psychotherapist, of course, I believe in different parts inside me. That idea of one thing on your shoulder going, eat the cake, and the other thing going, don't eat the cake, And so I think in those terms a lot of the time, and that, there's Thor there going, stand up for the underprivileged and so on. And then there's Loki going, Sodom or whatever. And I've got all these different gods and goddesses inside me. But me thinking that, it also means, of course, that I think that everybody else has got those gods and goddesses inside them, so I therefore ought to respect them. And they might have different ones coming out of them as to what I've got coming out of me. And it's a constant struggle as to which ones I listen to and how I hit some sort of balance.
So you're saying it's on an individual basis, malevolence, or demonic, as Christians would say, the having a demon would be, in North tradition, it would be malevolence within one's individual self.
I mean, there's people out there. Great, look at the news.
Yeah.
Just
out of interest.
But then what you do about it?
Yeah.
There's bad things out there. But then it depends what you do.
If Loki, if Thor and Loki were looking down now at us, all of us, which one do you think would be laughing hardest?
Good question.
Our situation down here. At this, everything that's going on now, which one would be laughing, do you reckon, the hardest?
Loki, no doubt.
Yeah, probably. I think
it's all we'd like to go around smiting Putin, Trump, Nehartu from Israel and so on. And Loki would say, well, they made a mess of it, serve the
Yeah, I
socks
agree
right,
with you.
you know.
I do. I agree with you. I think low-key as well. Another
But
quick
you
one.
know, this is the thing. What you do about it then? I had an ethics lecturer when I was a social worker, and he said, "Okay," to the class, "you're all going to be social workers, so you've got to act ethically." Yeah, and they all said yes, yes. And he said, "All right, so you can magically be taken back in time to 1938, 39, and there you're on a tall building, and you can see Hitler down there, and you find in your hands a gun with a telescopic sight, and you could shoot him now, knowing what you know now, what Hitler got up to. Do you do it?" And most of the student social workers in the class said, "Oh, not sure. Yeah, ought to, you know, even if I'm going to get caught and killed myself." And I said, "So all of you who think you're so ethical are willing to condemn and kill a man without a just trial?" And there was a nasty pregnant silence. And I said, "But being a heathen, I'd be quite prepared to shoot him and then hold my hands up and say, 'Go on, arrest me, execute me. I think it was worth it.'"
Yeah.
After which there was some very prolonged discussions.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? I don't think it would do much good, but I get, you know, it is a good thought experiment.
The heathen thing is, then you have to take the consequences. If you're going to shoot Trump or shoot Putin or whoever, you know, you can do that, but you must then take the consequences of going, "Yeah, my bad. Yeah, I done that. I think it was worth it." I mean, I'm 72. I've had a good life. I've nearly died several times through cancer and road accidents and so on. If I could be given that opportunity to shoot some of them people, I would take it. That's my personal choice, knowing that I would probably be dying a hail of bullets immediately, either before or after. That's my choice. I think it'd be worth it. But I wouldn't wish that on anybody else.
No. I get what you mean. For you know, I respect your morals. You know, definitely. But right, I've got another. You've written about the pre-Christian paths before the church arrived with the concept of hell. What were the Anglo-Saxons actually afraid of in the dark then? What did they believe was watching them from the woods?
I think they all did believe different things. We lump. I've just been writing a book on Anglo-Saxon pagan beliefs in Britain. It won't come out for about another year, but Anglo-Saxons were drawn, and of course that includes Jutes and Frisians, Angles, Saxons, Jutes, Frisians. They were drawn from about 40 Germanic tribes on the continent. Most of them tribes have been fighting each other at some time or other. Most of them tribes have got their own gods and goddesses, and they were all different. Some of them, when they came over here, would have carried on those beliefs. Some of them wouldn't. Some of them would have adapted. So when little bloke comes in a frock with a cross and says, "Oh, I've got this wonderful new god for you," they would have had all sorts of reactions. You know, in East Anglia, we had a king called Threadweld, who was the king of the Angles in East Anglia. And he goes down to the king of Kent, King Ethelbert, who's got a Christian wife who comes from Frisia. And King Ethelbert said, "Oh, you know, I want you to become a Christian." "What's that?" He said, "Well, you know," and they explain it. And he said, "All right then." And he allows himself to be christened, and he takes his self back to Rendlesham in Suffolk, where he sets up a Christian altar in his pagan temple alongside the pagan ones, and doesn't see anything wrong with that. You know, one more god to have. You know, seems like a nice boy.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, the Christians think this is terrible. You know, you haven't understood this at all. But of course, he would have had both Christian and pagan followers, and would have had to have, you know, represented them both. In fact, when he dies only a few years later, he has the most wonderful pagan burial in a ship, which his wife arranged, who was still pagan. And of course, that is the Sutton Hoo treasure. You know, you want to look at a good pagan burial, you can go and look at the stuff in the British Museum and so on. So, was he a Christian? Was he a pagan? Was he a mix of both? We'll never really know. You know, I'd like to add a few words with him. And of course, recently they've dug up the place that was his palace at Rendlesham, and I was there when they got also uncovered the post holes, not just of his hall, but of the temple that was there. And there isn't many pagan temples in evidence in Britain, but that's one of them. And I was so pleased to be there.
I think I know where that is. I think
it's not far from Rendlesham Church.
Yeah, it's not very far away from I went to, there's a range there. I think you might know it. I won't be too specific, but it's nobody knows who built it or why it was built, but there's a range there with outbuildings and such and so forth there. But I think I know where that is. I think I do know where that is. How many? Can I ask you something? How many Freemasons are pagan?
I don't know. I don't know.
Do you know of any? Did you
oh dear, I'm not a Freemason. There are some pagan Freemasons I know who talk about it, and of course they share some words with Wicca. You know, the merry meet, merry part, merry what may we once meet again. That is in the third degree of Masonry. Now, whether the Masons taught it to the Wiccans or the Wiccans taught it to the Masons, I don't know. Gerald Gardner was, of course, a Mason. And Gerald Gardner also had contact with Rosicrucians, many of whom were also Masons.
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
but it's not my field. It's not my field.
Yeah, he was quite also quite bigoted, not very nice to women either, as I understand. Gerald Gardner, but he'd like
to be nice.
Well, yeah,
he was of his generation. You've got to remember, Gerald Gardner was of a different generation to us.
He was of a different generation. Yeah, but
the one who was really very not nice to women was Aleister Crowley.
Yeah, as Crowley wasn't. No, he was a absolute, quite learned in the arts, but he was an absolute narcissistic bigot, and he was living up to his own hype, but he was learned. He did know things. But yeah,
I'm not into Crowley at all, but I think he was probably the most successful magician of his generation.
I think one of the most. I think. Do you know what? I tend to feel this, and I tend to think that some of the most successful magicians are the ones who will never know about. They're the most successful, not the most publicly known, but some of the quietest, everyday people that practice. And the nondescript people, they're the ones which really truly have a lot of power. But the ones which are public and I'm not.
The trouble is,
I've met a lot of people which you know, of everyday people who've really surprised me. Two have surprised me. Two people about being magicians.
The trouble is, to be a successful magician, you need a very strong will. To have a very strong will, you need to have a big ego. So when you get these people not sparking off each other with big egos, you know, I always like to look at. There's a guy called Ernest Osborne Spare, who was an artist, and he's in fact very responsible for what we nowadays call sigil magic and automatic writing and so on. If more people had listened to him at the time, rather than Crowley, rather than Gardner, we might have had a very different magical world.
Yes, indeed.
But
yeah.
Osborne Spare had a terrible temper and a terrible ego.
Can I ask you about elementals, if that's all right? We hear about elementals and land spirits. Are they? Is it a landvitir? Landvitar? Are they called?
Yeah. Within the heathen tradition, they're normally referred to as landvitir.
Landvitirs, yeah. Can these spirits turn nasty? Could a haunting or demonic attack actually be an angered land spirit protecting its territory?
I think everything can turn nasty. I can certainly turn nasty. Most things aren't positive or negative, you know, they react as they are. But having said that, there are some places I've been where I've felt that there were spirits protecting the place, and if you didn't respect them, I think they could turn nasty. I don't think partly it's because we don't understand them and they don't understand us. If you go to Sutton Hoo, to where the mounds are, and stuff, there's a particular corner of that where there's some trees stand up. And I've always felt, right since I was a little boy, because I used to go down there, that it's not good to meddle with. That, you know, when I was a little boy, you could go for a picnic at Sutton Hoo and kick your ball about. But I tended to not go in that corner because I didn't think it felt very nice. And I still don't think it very nice 70 years later. You know, I think they're older than the Merrill Mounds.
People might know Sutton Hoo from the point of view of it's going towards Aldborough on that side of Suffolk, and it's famous because in the farmland there, if I remember rightly, there was a Viking ship found. And
no, definitely not.
What? No,
definitely not.
I saw the TV program, mister. I saw that TV program. Do you remember the TV program? It was on TV. They made a documentary, a drama of it, Pete.
Yeah, and it was not a Viking ship. It's an Anglo-Saxon burial ground. The Vikings weren't here for several hundred years more.
No, they were too busy. They were too busy in the States. They went over to America and found America before Columbus did. That's why.
You're just getting silly now.
There was a Sutton Hoo. There was a ship found, wasn't there? Anglo-Saxon. Let's call it Anglo-Saxon. BBC, but Anglo-Saxon ship found there, wasn't there, Sutton Hoo? But I do know where you mean. I think I do know where you mean, the picnic place as well. I do know that. It's funny enough, Aldborough has got its own climate system, hasn't it? So it's got a microclimate in Aldborough. Very lovely. If you want fish and chips, Aldborough's a place. Very, very lovely fish and chips.
Yeah.
Really nice. And lovely smokehouse as well, right on the beach. Anyway, we detract. Right. So you were saying in Sutton Hoo there was woods, and you didn't like going to those woods, that corner.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh.
Has he gone? He's gone, hasn't he?
I think his internet's gone.
Has the internet gone? Oh, for goodness sake. No, I was starting to enjoy that, actually. I was starting to enjoy that. Oh,
I
it's a
wonder
shame.
how it will be before you realise he's not
No,
there.
no, Natalie, no. You need to get yourself a Philly bell.
I know you need a little ringy bell.
You need to get a Philly bell. It's the only way to stop me once I start. Yeah.
See, if that were me, I'd be paranoid now for the rest of my life at whether I'd upset him or whether the internet had just randomly cut out at that point.
Do you know what? I upset. I don't know. I don't know who I don't upset over.
To be fair, the whole because the Viking and Anglo-Saxon thing, I do think because they did find, I think they found the big burial thing at Sutton Hoo, but there was also another one, and they weren't sure what it was, and they just described it to being Viking, but at the time. But sometimes they change it afterwards, don't they? Once they do a little bit more study, because archaeologists are very good at making assumptions about things and then having to test afterwards. But there's a lot of intersecting histories in that area anyway. So I suppose the general assumption is that it's Viking, but
yeah. I just remember there was a like a TV drama, and I watched it. That's how I knew. I was like, I watched it, and it was like, yeah, no, but you know, it's just, you know, what it is, and it's banter, you know, at the end of the day. Right. Let's have a little look and see on the comments, see who is still with us, see if anyone's dropped off as well. Dragonborn, hello. Got Kate. Got hello, Kate. Got Dawn, Sasquatch sister. How you doing, Dawn? Keith Aston, hello, mate. Yeah, he's gone. I know. Yeah. Who else? Nayfair, hello, Nayfair. We've got Susie Stuff. Hello, Susie Stuff. Sean Patterson. Hello, Sean. It's been a while. I haven't spoken to you for ages. I hope you're keeping all right, Sean. Let's have a look. Yep, Susie Stuff. Ashton. Thank you very much, everybody that is on the chats. I can't believe it. You know, very, very lovely. Got some lovely on Drew Hollings. Hello, Drew. Delroy. Hello, Delroy. Thank you for being on the chat. Appreciate it. Nick Berry. Hello. Yeah. Who? Please. No, brilliant. And Roxy, of course, Roxy. But yeah, Roxy's not very well at the moment. She's got this cold going around. So she's a bit, you know, under the weather. She was off on Tuesday and Wednesday. She was off work, which is very unlike her. You know, I usually like to send her out so that she can earn money and keep me in the life I'm accustomed to. Sean Patterson says, "Hey Phil, doing well. Got more recent pictures if you want to do another shot." Yes, why not? Why not? Yeah, that's it. Why not indeed? Been a while since we've had a chat, so it would be quite cool. Yeah, so I'm not sure if I don't know whether or not I should message him. Do you think I should message him?
You could try. I mean, given the fact he's having trouble with the internet, it's most likely that it's just dropped him off.
Yeah. But I was quite getting into that, actually.
I was going to say, it's I have trouble processing it when there's a little bit of a lag. because my brain sort of like has trouble keeping the focus of what I've just said for a whole 3
Oh, it
seconds.
would
before
though,
someone
wouldn't it?
replies.
It would with you. I know.
Yeah.
It
And
would
then when
with
you
you.
try and interrupt, to ask or to clarify, you can't, because there's a 3-second delay, and by the time they've heard your interruption, you're on to the next bit of the sentence, and it's like, it's the joys of modern tech.
I know. Maybe I'll just put hello, is your internet gone? I'll just put that. So hopefully I won't get a whole stream of expletives on a reply.
Well, from what you were saying about his history as a president, he's obviously had to be very diplomatic in a lot of situations. When dealing with the government, you have to be able to
yeah,
be persistent.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, but it's a show. At the end of the day, it's classed as entertainment, and it's a show. And I like to ask questions which probably a lot of people wouldn't ask. Which can be awkward. They can be awkward questions.
Well, you're chatting to someone you don't know as well, so you're always trying to find people's the areas of knowledge and the things that they sort of like talk about as well. So, unless you ask the questions, you can't find the direction of where you want to talk to. So, unless you know them well,
it's hard to.
It can be quite challenging to know what to say sometimes. But it's just be random.
Yeah, and kind of. I mean, the good thing is with us, people kind of like know what we're like, because if you tune in and listen, and you kind of get a pretty good judge of a character, and we can be quite questioning. We can be quite questioning, not to embarrass. I hope not to embarrass, but just to find out that little bit more, push the envelope a little bit if we can, which I think is all part and parcel of what we should be doing, because at the end of the day, people put themselves out there. They've got books, they've got articles, they're in the public eye because they're selling. So it's nice to know some of the background and some of that person's ideologies.
Yeah, it's clarifying, isn't it? It's like if you ask clarifying questions rather than combative, I think you get more out of people generally, because then they start explaining, and then you can see the way they understand things, and then you understand how to ask the questions, because what their focus is can be different to yours, so you'd pick up on different information. So it is a skill, isn't it, in a way, interviewing. It's not actually as easy as it seems.
It's not. No, it's really not. No, I mean, I've had some interviews which have been quite difficult. They have been quite difficult. One in particular was very difficult, and that was with a chap who had a sighting of a Dogman kind of rake figure. But of course, and he was so honest. He was such a lovely guy. He really is. I talk about in past tense, not past tense at all, but he is such a lovely guy. And if you watch him, how you doing, mate? I think you know who you are. I was talking to him about this rake, and he was at a bus stop. I think I've spoken to it before, but he came on, and when he approached me, he said that he suffers with schizophrenia. So of course that's a nightmare. It's like, I was like, well, hang on, you're going to be talking about, we're seeing a rake or a Dogman, and it's, oh, thank you very much, Kate. Make it look easy. That's ever so sweet, thank you. So he's talking about something which is a borderline myth, and also with the backup of having a schizophrenia. And I thought, oh, this is going to be difficult. This is going to be difficult. you know, and I had to, before the interview, I had to come on and explain. I asked for permission to do this, and I said, look, if I do take your story in your account, and because he wanted the account out there, he was so convinced that it wasn't a schizophrenic episode, that he actually saw this, and I believed him. I did believe it. I still believe him, because by actually coming forward and being honest about having schizophrenia, which comes and goes. Don't think that people with schizophrenia have it all the while. They don't. Very often they have medication, like this guy did, have medication for it. But then very often what tends to happen is they take the medication, they feel better. After they feel better, they then stop the medication because they think they don't need it anymore. And then they go slumping down into episodes, let's say. So it's a seesaw with them. It's a seesaw effect with that. But I kind of like saw a lot of credibility in the account, and I wanted to do it, but that was a difficult one. That was a difficult one. And there was another one by with Sean. Funny enough, that was quite difficult. I think Sean understands it was quite difficult, but we got there though. We got there with his account. But yeah, definitely we need to talk again, Sean. That's for sure. But I mean, I had to, with Sean, I had to keep saying, look, hang on a minute, you know, sometimes you have to know to slow people up a little bit. You have to sort of, you know, you have to, if things are traveling too quickly, and a lot of times with people, it comes out, it almost vomits out of them, their account does. It just comes out in one go, and it's like, and it doesn't, it's not linear. You need to sort of actually say, well, hang on, and you need to slow them up and say, right, okay, let's get this into context, because unless something's in context, you're not going to really.
That's the problem with the paranormal stuff, is particularly the cryptid encounters, because it does strike that kind of emotional response in a lot of people anyway. So the brain does stop being linear when you're having the experience very often. So it is hard to get it into some kind of, you know, sort of thing that makes sense. And sometimes if you put it in a way that makes sense, you lose the details. So you kind of need a bit of the sense and a bit of the no sense at the same time, don't you? But that's the whole point in questioning, you know, like you say, to take that experience and then try and make it into a linear format so it's understandable for everybody else as well. It's but yeah,
It's difficult, isn't it? It's not easy.
Brain is a very strange thing.
And I like I like, I mean, let us know in the comments. Do you prefer interviews which are a bit more like this, or do you prefer the more let's say staid kind of interviews, the interviews that you often see, at least with these ones, the ones I like, kind of, we tend to be a bit more colourful, don't we, in our questions and what we ask, and it's a bit more laid back, I like to think, a bit more informal. And I feel that I like asking the questions that we ask.
See, I tended to find, like, with me and talking to people, that if I have a pre-set idea of what I want to talk to them about, I always end up talking about other things. So I usually start talking to people and see what comes out. Because the conversation seems to always sort of want to go in a particular way. So I mean, I've had it a few times where, like, I think, oh, I'm going to talk about such and such, and then ended up talking about something completely opposite. And every time I've tried to get it back to the original topic, it's just veered off again. And I'm sort of like, so, you know, sometimes you have to kind of find the groove of what wants to be said at that point in time as well. And I think that's why sometimes the conversations can seem a bit stilted if you're trying to steer it, rather than, you know, because some things, you know, in the paranormal, like, some things want, like you said about the cryptids, some stories want to be told. And it's like, you know, and if you try and stop that to derail it onto something else, you know, it can be sort of like, I think it can stop the flow I find that with the horses, it's like sometimes like when I'm talking to some people, like that interview I did with Colin, I couldn't shut up, and I wasn't intending to talk about the horses at all. So, because he was saying, "Oh, you're paranormal," and I was like, "Yeah, I can talk about all that stuff." I ended up spending an hour yakking on about my horses. So it's like, but that's just what needed to come out, and I couldn't stop it. So it was a story that needed to be told. But
honestly, people, if you haven't seen the interview, you got to see it. I'll put a link on the bottom here to Cole's Mr. Kilty's interview on his channel. It's well worth seeing.
That's why we were laughing at that clip by the point at the end, because he was just sort of like, couldn't get word in edgeways. And I was like, I'm really sorry. I'm actually normally a really quiet person, but we were talking about horses. So
I spoke to Colin the next, because I usually talk to Colin. We talk, I don't know, it's like stupid times in the morning. But usually sort of like talk to him. And I remember the next day I sort of messaged him, and I said, you should have seen your face, mate, when Natalie mentioned about the goldfish. His face was like,
yeah, because he wasn't, I think, because afterwards I said to him, was that what you're expecting? Because I can't answer people's questions when they say, are you paranormal? Because I'm not a paranormal investigator. I'm just random. And it's like, and so I don't think he was expecting it to go in the direction it went in. But because I was a bit worried that I'd confused him a little bit, because I think he was expecting one thing and got something completely.
It's easily done.
Completely the opposite.
It's easy to confuse Kilty. It is easy to confuse him. It doesn't take a lot.
I scared him by the end of because I was starting. That's why I was trying to slow down the talking, because I was like, I think I'm going to start, like, I'm going to scare him at one.
It doesn't take a lot. Bless him. He gets quite confused putting down what glove to put on what hands some mornings. Sean Patterson said, I love horses. Yeah.
Hey.
Do you know, on your interview there was Colin mentioned about horses and like Dogman around horses. And I was once told by Ian Wood about this, and he said that very often you find horses with scratch marks on their back, or cases. Not very often, but you get cases where there's scratch marks on the back. But Ian, I remember saying when I was interviewing Ian, he said that they actually, what's the best way of putting it? It's because they abuse the horses. That's why.
Oh, I think I remember hearing him saying that. Yeah, that was.
Yeah. I don't know how true. I don't know what, but yeah, because and also I was talking to a lady today, because I was going up to Royston, and sort of traveling in a van. I was going along, and I was just seeing a lot of. When I got back, she said she'd been to the same place because like we kind of worked together. And anyway, she said, "Did you see all the deer, Phil, on the side of the road?" I said, "Yes, I know, I did. And on the side of the road, there was about, bless their hearts, there was about, I would say, 4 deer, but all of them, we were both a bit stumped, missing their heads.
All right. That's unusual.
Their heads missing completely. Yeah, I saw 4 in the same state, which was a bit strange.
Yeah, because you don't tend to get trophy hunting in the UK, because our deer aren't really, know, because that's the only other thing I could think of if you've got trophy hunters, but that it's not really a common thing in the UK, is it? So for the same reason. But
not with sort of whitetails. No, these were sort of whitetails, so you don't really kind of, perhaps a stag. No, but no, I wouldn't say trophy hunter for a whitetail, but yeah, it was just a bit odd, you know, just a bit kind of like I thought, and when I got back and I was talking to her and she mentioned it, and I was like, yeah, I did. That was like really, yeah, that was odd. I've got to tell people while we're on, coming up to Christmas, we're Natalie and myself are organising a cryptids dedicated show for Dogman, werewolf, Dogman, around, you know, encapsulating that, but mostly Dogman stuff, because yes, Dogman is different to werewolves. And so we're going to be having, I'm just collating together guests. I've got some guests penciled in, which is great. I'm not going to tell you who just yet. I know the tension, but I'm going to we're gathering together a few guests so that we can kind of like get together in the studio, talk about what's been going on this year, talk about the frequencies of sightings, what's been happening, both here in the UK and in the States. Okay, that gives you a clue. It's going to be some Americans as well on. So we're gonna be having a show dedicated just for that. So if there's any questions that you have relating to this, then you can always send them to us. Okay, and we'll put them up on air if you like. If you want, when I start a chat, and you know, you can do this. Let's come up to Christmas. When I start up the chats which accompany these shows, you can press the record button and record your voice. Okay, so you don't have to be seen. You can always record it and record your question, and then I can play it on this. You know, if you don't want to be credited with your name, that's fine. But you know, you've always got that option. Because I know a lot of people go, oh look, I was on TV, I've been on TV, you know, which is quite nice. You know, it is quite nice. It's almost, I think it's a bit addictive actually. I was dead scared when I first came doing this, being on screen. You know, my first few shows, I never was on screen. I was audio only. If you go in my back catalogue of podcasts and videos and that, I was just audio. I never did video, never did it for about, I'd say about a dozen shows, all audio, all accounting my own experiences. You know, right from when I was a kid and stuff. Nearly all of them, not all, nearly all of them. But you know, all of them will be when I get the book finally flipping done. But as Natalie knows, it's a flipping struggle. I'm towards the end of it, and like she said, quite rightly so, it's towards the end, it seems to get worse, doesn't it?
From what I've heard of writers, yeah, it's about 3/4 of the way through. And then again, when you're editing it, where you end up hating what you've written because you're editing it and it's so boring.
Yeah. That's it, because you've already written it, so you know what's in it, and you kind of like, I read back, you know, the first few chapters, and I was reading it thinking, no one's going to want to read this. But I had to start. The format I used was, I had to start off with, and I've tried to make it funny as well. I tried to put humor in there about stuff that has happened in my life and stuff that's happened around me that was quite funny, you know. For instance, you know, like one episode was strange, unfortunate stuff that happens around you, that, you know, paranormal kind of opens up a gateway and stuff happens. And one of the strange things was with me old mother. And I remember once, because I started seeing sightings and having odd things happen in and around the family home for quite some time. And I remember there was we went to, it used to be a Unigate dairy, and Mum went in there, and they changed it, closed the Unigate dairy down, so no more floats and stuff, and they changed it into a greengrocers. And we went in just to buy some spuds, and there was a queue back in the 70s. This was I was really quite young, and I remember mother kind of walking in there. Come on, Philly, let's go get some spuds, and I'll treat you to a banana. And get some bananas, love it. Anyway, and as she was walking, there was a long queue, and then a counter at the end. And then you had all the greengrocery stuff on two open, and they were like fake grass. It was like fake grass draped down, and you had all your different bananas and apples and oranges and everything else on this fake grass counters, if you like, either side. And then the queue in the middle and the counter at the end. Anyway, we got some apples and got some other bits and bobs, and then Mum said, "Oh, we've got to queue up, I suppose." And she went to queue up. She trod on a strawberry. Anyway, she trod with her heel, so her heel sort of like went onto the strawberry. As it did, she took off, and she went careering down past the whole of the queue. And of course, the women in the queue, oh, look at her, and all about number 57. Look, always trying to get in front. She'd do anything to try and get in front. And Mum was like, "Oh, I can't stop. And she was on one leg, and she's quite a big lady. Even back then, she was not a small lady. She's quite a big lady, and she was like, "I can't stop. I can't." And going the whole length of the queue down, we're on one foot. Yeah, using the strawberry as like kind of she hit the counter, landed, and then I went up and I was like dreadfully embarrassed. I was like, "Oh, what have you done?" And Mum was on the floor. I can remember her saying, "Oh, Phil, pull my skirt down, would you?"
Just got to watch for them strawberries. Strawberry skin.
Yeah, yeah, that's what Mother sounded like. "Oh, Phil." Oh, actually, whenever it's Mother, it'd be Philip. Yeah, never Phil. So Philip. Yeah. So it still is to this day. Bless her heart, she's still going. Yeah, she's still. "Oh, how are you, Philip?" "Oh, I'm all right, Mum. Yeah, how are you?" "Oh, not too bad." Yeah. And do you watch the show, Mum? "Oh, no, don't watch the show. No, I've got better things to do." Like,
It's
cheers, Mum.
just
Thanks
as
for the vote of
well.
support.
It's like if you're telling stories about it.
Yeah. So anyway, if you are watching, Mother, I'm sure you remember that. That will live on in your memory for a long, long time. But I wrote about a little bit about like funny bits like that happened, because when you put them all together with everything else that happens, you just think to yourself, what is the odds of that? One lone strawberry that she steps on, like boom. And there's been other stuff as well in around that same time period that is like kind of really odd. That coupled with odd things around the house. The sign coming through the window, and imaginary friends, let me say, in Italy. I think we know about that. And I was like, so yeah, it's just but yeah, writing about it's like nightmare. Wish I never started it, really. Yeah, absolute nightmare. But it's a slow process, but I get there. What have you been up to lately? What have you been up to?
Me? Not a lot, actually. I've not been 100% the last few weeks. So this last 2-3 days is the first couple of days where I've actually had like extra energy to do stuff. So that's why I was up the allotment, sort of like trying to get all the weeding done before the weather gets too bad. But talking about the allotment, actually, the woods around there were feeling a bit spooky again today. I don't know if it was the weather or because last time I went up, it actually felt almost friendly again. You know how we were saying earlier in the year that the woods have been feeling strange. And then today I was like, I was all right until we got to sundown, and suddenly I was like, I need to leave. And normally that's when I turn up at the allotment is around sundown. So I'd gone up like about an hour earlier today because I thought, okay, I've only got an hour in me before my back starts hurting again. But today I just got this "you need to leave now" feeling up there. So it's quite strange. So I get that every so often up there. There are spirits up there, actually. There's a couple, but they've been quite quiet this year, actually. It's normally around sundown you get told to go, because it's like you're gardening. It's it's sundown, go away. You shouldn't be gardening with a head torch in the dark. It's not. But I've seen someone up there before now. Like there was a spirit. It was not it was a tall, thin guy wearing like green and brown clothing, like the sort of like back in the sort of 60s, 70s, like the gamekeeper type. Not quite camo, but the old fashioned like countryside wear. It used to be like the shirt and the waistcoat and the tweed almost, wasn't it? And he followed me around the track, around the fish ponds when I was went for a walk. And he wasn't very happy because it was, again, a sundown. And he was just like, you need to be leaving. That's why I started calling him Gaffer, because it was like, you're done now, off out, off home. But yeah, it's been quiet for that this year. I've not really felt much around, other than it's not been feeling friendly. But
you used to see he was just like be lurking by the woods, was he?
Because I used to go up the allotment and then go for a wander around the woods, like So I used to go up sort of a couple of hours before sundown, do about an hour and a half of gardening, because I have to watch my back because it's like old injuries and that. And then I used to just go for a 40-minute walk circuit around one of the pathways in the woods. And I always felt a little bit sort of uncomfortable at the allotment around sundown, whereas, like, bearing in mind, like, I'm a nocturnal person, so I tend to wake up as soon as the sun starts going down, and that's when I start wanting to do stuff. But yeah, I was like, I went for this walk thinking, I feel a little bit, I'll just do a short walk. And I turned around after a bit because I just got fed up with feeling like there was somebody there. So I thought, maybe there's somebody else walking and I'm just being paranoid, but there is actually someone there. And I turned around and I saw this like figure in the distance. And I just got this really strong, you need to be going home. Why are you going for a walk in the woods now at this time? It's like, go away. Yeah, and I used to get it up the allotment, but I didn't actually see anything, but I used to get the same feeling because the allotment's next to the woods. And it was like, it's usually around sundown. In the summer, about 10 o'clock, between 9 and 10, I start to get this, you need to be leaving now feeling. And so I used to go, I've nearly done. I called him Gaffer. I was like, I'm nearly done, Gaffer. I'll be home in about 5 minutes. And then the feeling will go away again. So I've seen somebody else walking down the path when I was gardening, because I've got a bit of allotment on both sides of this hedge, and I was on the other side, and I swear somebody walked down the path, and I was weeding, so I had my back to it at the time, but I saw a person, expecting it to be one of the other allotment holders, and I turned around and there was no one there, and I was like, but I actually saw a figure out of the corner of my eye walk down the path. But that didn't look like Gaffer. It was a little bit less skinny, sort of like a little bit more built, and the hair was longer, sort of like shoulder length and a brownie colour. So I don't know who that was. I've only seen that one once, I think. So but yeah, this year it's been quite quiet. So I'm not quite sure why. But
it has been quiet. I've got, when we have the special with the cryptids, I'm gonna put up, with your permission, I'll put up that photo you sent me that time. I've got a couple of photos of that entity you saw. I'll put that up. I still got those in my archive, so I'll put those up and we'll talk about that as well. Right then, we've got Layfair said, how many paranormal encounters have you had, Phil, approximately? Wow. Look, let me put it this way. After the first recognized paranormal encounter, and I say recognized because it is not that all through my life I've had encounters, and these encounters have by very essence not been normal, not been what one would usually expect. and I've had little tiny things and big things, but numerous throughout the years. It started. I started when I was around about, I would say, Dogman wise, 8 years old. But I saw ghouls when I was around 6 years old. So, you know, and everything in between. My things like ghosts were, or what people call ghosts, were commonplace. It's one of these things where, and it's interpretation. So everyone has paranormal, everybody has paranormal happenings that happen to them. Everyone. You don't have to believe in it for it to happen. It happens. It's just your interpretation, whether you recognize it. So, I would, to answer that, I would say numerous throughout the years. So many that it's not worth listing some of the smaller ones because they are just small. We had 2 dogs that passed away a few years back. So we had Bailey, which is Ruby, the white dog's mother. She was a Patterdale, and we had Molly, who was a big, fluffy German Shepherd. And both Rox and myself. Now, Rox sits on the fence. I'm not. I jump straight in with 2 feet when it comes to these things and talking about this stuff. You know, I do. I jump in with both feet. It's almost like meat and drink. You know. But Rox sits on the fence. But she's seen Molly and Bailey walking, following me up the stairs. She's seen that. I've seen Molly. She was a big girl. Molly was so big that once Rox did me a sausage casserole for work next morning to take, and it was in one of these Sistema microwavable containers. I still got it. I kept it because it's still got Molly's teeth marks in it. I won't ever throw that away. Anyway, I remember I left it on the side, and she was so big, she actually jumped up on the side, grabbed hold of the container, took it to the sofa, ate all the sausage casserole, okay, managed to take the top off, and not one drop of that sausage casserole ended up on the sofa. Not one. So she was a greedy old girl, but still see her. I still see her walking, not full, just her rear, which is very, very common with animals. People very often just see the rear posterior, you know, of the animal. But very often see her, just like kind of walking upstairs, or, you know, the rear of her walking into the kitchen, seeing if there's any more sausage casserole going. Everybody has paranormal instances. Everyone. It's us which has that switch that goes off. And when that switch goes off, we recognize it, the whole lot we recognize. And it opens up. So yeah, I have had many, many 30 years. Too many to actually count. Too many. Doppelgangers, UFOs. Clacton-on-Sea, I had a UFO sighting. Mother was there as well. Oh, Phil, see those lights up there? What are those lights? They're all triangles. Oh, yes, they are. Coming in off the ocean, and there were like 3 sets of triangles with like 9 lights in each triangle. And they were, if you like, like geese. They were like geese. Best way of putting it. Geese in the sky, same configuration. These lights were coming in off the ocean and inland, coming inland. That was in the late 80s, early 90s. I think that was when I was in Clacton. I have to check, but I think round about that time. remember being, there's lots of instances where voices. I've told you before. I hear a lot of voices and stuff. So it just happens like that. Yeah. So, do you think that's right, Natalie? Does that happen to you like that?
I'm never not immersed in it. I'd love to be able to switch it off. It's like there isn't a day almost where I don't see something. I mean, there's like more significant encounters that that you make your stories out of, but like every day almost, it's like, I mean, I live in a really old area anyway, but it's like I'm never not aware of super beyond 3D reality. So I would say, like, like I said, when everyone's like, oh, they don't run out of stories, and it's like, if I actually trigger my memory, I've got enough stories. But yeah, it's like, but it's everywhere, all around you, all the time. So it's just sort of like if you either were aware of it or not. So it's like, I suppose for most people, they'd have like 1 or 2 encounters, and that's their story. Whereas like other people, it just seems to happen to them all the time. But yeah, so I've had like, especially around the horses, rather a lot. But over the years.
Yeah, it seems to be it seems to be like a catalyst, doesn't it? Do you think? I've got a question. Do you think, with the horses? Because I was watching your interview. Do you think? Do you think they could be for you familiars? What would be the difference between you having the communication on such a, especially with some of the horse in the past, that horse that passed away, and you really had an affinity with this horse, it seemed to be. Do you think you could consider that to be I'm not saying you're a witch, but do you think you could call that a familiar?
No, I know with both of my 2 horses that are passed, apparently I had past lives with them. The Lancer was my horse in the military. I think she said I was in the Russian military, and I got shot off his back. And so I know I've had at least 1 past life with him. And then when I did the healing course down in Wiltshire, she said that my other horse possibly was another military connection, because his name was Monty, and she said there was a General Montgomery, and she thought that was like, I can't remember if she said World War I or World War II. So I've been sort of like, so I think with them it was more of a, not familiars in the magical sense, but like past life links and connections. So like, they talk about the soul groups and soul families and things, and you meet people that you've met in a past life, in this life, and your relationships and roles change. I think possibly that Lancer was definitely a past life one. I've known him for a very long time, I think. Monty, I'm not sure if the past life connection is there, or whether he just came to me because I was a person that could deal with the things that was going on around him. I'm not 100% sure, but he definitely had like a slight military connection as well. So it's possible I knew him in a past life. But my horses definitely have had past lives, and I've seen other horses that have definitely been here before. So yeah, I wouldn't say familiar in the sort of witchy, you're here to do my bidding and help me do my magic sense, though. But familiarity perhaps would be better. Yeah.
Do you believe in past lives? I mean, from the point of view of like we get born again.
Definitely, yeah. I've seen horses at the stud when I worked at one of the pony studs, that we had some horses that they just knew what to do. We hardly ever had to train them. And we always used to go, oh, he's been here before. And then I used to have horses, like Monty wasn't a very good horse, and I swear he was a man in a horse's body, and that's why he wasn't very good as a horse. And again, at one of the studs, I had a foal that came visiting with the mare for one of the stallions. And this foal, I swear, didn't have a horse soul. And then I started to realize that some horses had horse souls, which made me think they'd been horses for many lifetimes. And then you'd get other ones that were odd, and they weren't like horses. When you just looked at them, they didn't have horseness. So that's when I started to sort of take that a little bit more seriously. But I'm pretty certain that things come back. Not everyone necessarily, but I'm pretty certain that souls get called here for whatever reason. Yeah. It was the animals more than anything that sort of showed that, weirdly. I don't know about people past lives, but apparently I've had past lives and been told, so I'm like, I can't discount it, because the one with Lance had made a lot of sense. Because I always had pain in that shoulder in one specific point. And when she said, "Oh, you got shot," because she didn't know me. She was a correspondence. It was a letter she wrote, as an animal communicator, and it was a letter she wrote to me. I said, "Oh, can you tell me about my horse?" Sent her a photo, and she said, "You got shot off his back in your left-hand shoulder." And I was like, "Oh God, yeah, that's the one I had a lot of trouble with when I was at uni. It was very painful." Yeah, so it did kind of figure.
Yeah. I did see. Why I ask is because I'm covering a little bit about that type of thing in the book as well. And one thing I wanted to ask people, just like their advice, what they would like. So, I figured doing the book, writing a bit about the past, right, Natalie? So I wrote about, so people know about me and what I went through before I could write about my views. So I can't just write a book about my views without people having a bit of background on me as a person and what I went through, And I'm not saying went through as in it was torturous, horrible. It was like, it wasn't. A lot of times it was funny. A lot of times it was just like, like I say, it's with the supernatural or paranormal, I prefer supernatural when I do paranormal. Paranormal's derived from French, but not that I got anything against French, but I prefer the supernatural. It's more in pertaining, I think, to what goes on, because it is, it's just it is super natural. It's natural from the point of view, I think, that so these things do naturally happen. It's just supernatural to us if we recognize them as being supernatural, but they're perfectly natural. They're not kind of always bad or always scary or always it just if you hear. There's been times when there's been, I remember I was scared, and we spoke about this before, Natalie, I was about windows. You said about windows. I'm the same with windows,
Curtains.
because I saw faces once at a window myself. And, it wouldn't have been so off-putting, but I was, it was a bit Salem's Lot type thing, I saw his faces, but I was on the first floor, bedroom, and faces like I knew something was there because you could see there's a street lamp outside, old-fashioned amber street lamp. The curtains were drawn, but you could see sort of shape of heads moving behind the curtain, so the light hitting the back of the head, casting a shadow on the curtain, and I was in bed like that. And I saw it, and I was like, "Oh God," and I had to go and open up I didn't ask Dad because Dad was, although Dad had a lot of odd things happen, or he spoke about a lot of odd things happen, in his past, he was not by any way, shape, or form, into it. He wasn't, didn't believe in it. He didn't really. He spoke about stuff which was a bit strange when it's because he was born in Cambridge, but he grew up in Malay because Granddad was Indian. So he Granddad came over here, married a beautiful Western woman, took his bar exam, became a QC, and then went to practice in Malay and had Dad with a beautiful Western woman, grandma, and then from 3 years old he went to practice in Malay. Unbeknown to Granddad, like kind of he started drinking really heavy because a lot of them in Malay, they used to drink. As soon as they get up in the morning, they have a drink. You know, it's like kind of so that Granddad turned into a bit of an alky, but sadly passed away too early. But you know, it's one of those things. But Dad did mention a few stories from over there, you know, which were a bit odd. He found them as odd, but he didn't overplay it as being paranormal. But he wasn't the sort of man who I could go to as a kid and say, "Can you open a curtain?" You know, he would just say, "Don't be so stupid. Get into bed. Don't bother me. Go on, get into bed." You know, he wasn't approachable like that. If I'd hurt myself, yes, he'd be all over me. He'd be like, "Oh my God, come on, come here. Let me sort it out. Come on." You know, but he anything like that, he wouldn't really be. He wouldn't entertain it. Wouldn't come into his vector. Not at all. So anyway, I opened up the curtain, tentatively as he did, again like that, you know, to see what the hell this shadow was and where it was coming from. Could have been a bird, could be, you know, but although birds don't really fly at night, do they? But well, they do, I guess. But and yeah, I saw this face, then another one. So I yeah, you know, it's, you know, cried, you know, I was like, and just froze. And you know, it sticks with you all the while, sticks with you. So right for this day, I don't like windows when they're got light inside, like now, because I can't see out. Because it's reflected, the light's coming back, I can't see out. And you know, anything out there can see me. And it's like, you know, I've always got that in my head. So I don't like it myself, you know. So things like that have always occurred, and you have to temper it with, you know, you question yourself constantly, don't you, Natalie? I do. I question myself. But you know, I think because we question it, I know that I'm not completely raving because I question it.
Yeah, that's where I found having the horses handy, because if I was questioning it and they reacted to something that I was perceiving, I knew it wasn't just me. And because they were animals, it's like you can't, you know, you can't sort of like use words to convey. I know they can react to your body and your intention and emotions and things, but at the same time, you know, you'd get things like thinking, is that me or not? And they'd react too before you've even thought that. And you're thinking, oh, right, okay, there must be something there because they're looking, you know, they saw it before me almost. Or I'm just thinking, I wonder if, and then they'll be like, oh, something over there, let's move. So yeah, so I used to use the horses as like a feedback mechanism for some of the experiences and things, like say, so stop you questioning if I'm crazy, then they wouldn't react to me this way because, you know, or they wouldn't react to what's outside me this way. Yeah, so I used to find that, but yeah, you do. I think you have to question though. I think that's what keeps you sane in a way, as long as you're not going around in circles with it, and you accept the answer you've got when you get the answer as well. Because I find a lot of people, when they question things, they question it, and you go, oh yeah, it's probably this, and they go, oh yeah, okay, that's right, yeah, no, that makes sense. Are you sure that's what it is? Are you sure that's what it is? And I think you get to the point where you're like, you know what? I've questioned it. I've tried to be rational about it and logical. Well, not rational. I've said this before, logical. And I have corroboration. You know, if I have corroboration, I'm going to accept this, because if I keep questioning it, I will go insane. So I've started to accept a little bit more of the everyday things. And then, like I say, sometimes when the things happen around the horses, I look at how the horses are reacting. And that's a pretty good reality check as well, I think, because they are tuned into that stuff as well. It's sort of like helps measure it a little bit. So when I lost my horses, it's like for a number of years, it was very difficult for me to balance what I was perceiving because I didn't have their feedback. So, but yeah, I think if questioning yourself is a very valid, especially with things like that. They're a little bit harder to understand.
Yeah, I think so. I think questioning is a good thing to do. And I also agree with you. I think also letting go of the episode. Don't. There was a person that I met once who is quite into the arcane and magic and stuff, and he said that with a lot of the knowledge, not to share it more than twice,
All right.
because if you share it once, it's the seed. If you share it twice, it grows, but you don't water it past that. You know what I mean? Because if you do, it then grows within that person that's heard it. And I think that plays out quite well with what we experience. You know, you can't kind of go over it because it changes, it evolves. If you keep going over it, it evolves. You just, in a way, you've got to accept it, remember it as a kind of a warning, if you like, or as a good omen, maybe. But you accept it and carry on. You don't, like you say, go around in circles over it, because I think it evolves and it changes, and it, you know, you want to keep it crystal. It
Yeah,
happens.
that's true. Because the more you go over it, sometimes that's why they say, don't they, to write things down while it's fresh. Because the more you start ruminating on things, it does alter the perception and feeling and emotion you had. The more you think about it, the more it changes it. Because the memories do change over time. They've done studies on it to show that if you keep pulling out memories, they do start altering. Unless they're like flashback type ones, in which case their problem is that they don't alter. They're kind of stuck. But I think questioning rather than doubting is or inquiry perhaps rather than questioning, because like I say, it's very easy to doubt your experience. But I used to go off just patterns. It's like the more patterns happen and more regularly, and the occurrences happen like in a certain, you start to notice patterns of things happening, and then you think, well, this is happening too many times now for it to be a coincidence. It's a pattern. And then I don't tend to doubt those ones because they're following the pattern that I've seen over the years. Makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It does make sense. I was looking at Keith Eston said, I close the curtain, laugh out loud, but I have friends who visit and look through the window while I'm crafting. He does some lovely craft work. You should check him out. He really makes some smashing stuff, really nice stuff. He's so talented. And yeah, I think keeps meaning the Janu come in and visit, because they visit him quite a lot. But he's friends with the Janu, which are you would call them Bigfoot.
Oh, right, okay.
Sasquatch. Yeah.
Oh, I've not heard that. How do you spell it? Janu.
Xanue.
Oh, okay.
But it's pronounced Janu. Yeah. And it's what they prefer to be called.
Oh, okay. I've not heard that word before, so.
Well, I hadn't, up to the point of talking. I interviewed Dr. Matthew Johnson, who is he's the chap who runs Camp Janu in the States, and he, years and years ago, just thought years ago, he went in the wilderness, and it was with his family, and he came across Sasquatch, a Bigfoot, and he was like scared. He was like, "My God, was it? What was huge?" You know. And then it kind of tagged him, and he had interactions with this entity, with this Janu, and it told him it doesn't like being called Sasquatch, doesn't really like being called Bigfoot, wants to be known as a Janu, and that's where it came from. So yeah, I interviewed and he's the chap who took two well-known cryptozoologists, one was a cryptozoologist, I forget what the other one was, a researcher, to Camp Jennings, and because they wanted to meet a Bigfoot, they wanted to experience meeting a Janu, and it was then that a portal that evening opened up. It was a red portal, and these black thin entities with red eyes came out of the portal, and both of the British researchers, British they were, witnessed this. And there was a big debate. A British one said that Dr. J didn't see them and didn't see the portal, but they did. Dr. J said no, and they were acting like idiots, and they were like kind of with a gun they had, and they were like trying to fire on these black entities, and it all just kicked off. So I wanted to interview the guy, with Dr. J, and I must admit, very credible, articulate, clever guy you wouldn't want to meet. It's like, very, very clued up. And it was very credible in the interview. He gave his story, his account of what actually happened. What happened, what went on. And I put on I think on the title, I said, this is a full stop, not a comma. This should end it, because with this constant debate between the two, you didn't see it, yes I did, I didn't see it, yes I did. No, it should sort of like, so that's how the Janu came about. And and I met Keith in Cannock. He took us round, bless his heart, and it was the first time I actually saw shimmering, because when the Janu appear, they appear as a shimmer. And like most people, I really didn't. Really? Yeah, they do. They appear as a shimmer, almost like the shimmering on a hot road. You see a hot road, and you see that shimmer across the road. But think of that between two trees, so you can see perfectly either side, but you can see like a shimmer between the trees. And you can see the color of the foliage behind. You can see the forest behind, but there's a slight shimmer to it. And I saw that first time with Keith at the Chase when he took us round. I said to Keith, I said, "Well, what's that?" And he looked. He said, "What can you see, Phil?" And I said, "Well, it's like shimmering. I can see like shimmer." He said, "That's a Jenny." He said, "That's a Jenny." He said, "You've seen it. Well done." So I can actually attest to saying, yeah, I have seen that shimmering. Colin was there as well. He didn't see it, but so that's thing. It was like two different people, two different sides. You kind of, but that's perspective once again. Maybe I was more aware. I don't know. Maybe Colin was more aware and didn't see it because it wasn't there. I don't know. It's perspective. So we're back to that thing again, paranormal. Do we experience it? Yes, everyone experiences it. Like I say, it's just whether or not you're clicked, whether it clicks and you can see it, not everyone can. So yeah, that was quite a good interview, I must admit. Nice guy. So yeah, I enjoyed that. And it's very open, it's an absolute open book policy he had. It was very open, and he's brought out 3 books now as well. But yeah, he's a nice guy, really nice guy, super clever. So I think if everyone, I don't think there's any questions actually. I think people have fallen asleep. If they have, then I don't blame you.
It's been a very strange evening.
It tends to happen on my.
I'm a bit confused.
I know. I don't know what happened, but I think I did message him, but
we'll find out later. I'm sure he'll get in touch.
Yeah, maybe. I did message him, but no, nothing back. So I think that's. I must have said something. It might have been the Viking or the Anglo-Saxon boat business. I don't
know. I mean, his internet was a bit leery, so it's possible I've said that
Yeah,
before about my phone. It's like sometimes my phone cuts me off when it doesn't want me to talk to someone. So maybe
Yeah.
there were gremlins.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Or BT.
You know, for people, before I go, I just want to say, you know, for people, I would definitely want to you want to check out the interview with Natalie. Brilliant.
Covell, was it? And I think I've heard of him. I'm not really sure. Can't be that good.
No, it's only good because I'm on there now. I've
I
told
can
him
believe
that.
that.
I'm taking the show. It's my show now.
Good. It'll get better. It'll get more views then.
I can't say it's getting better, isn't it? Not often like this for an hour every week.
He said to me he's got a Natalie bell or something. He has to ring it or something.
Oh yeah, when I'm talking too much. That's you. I was starting to understand now.
He's just as bad. So I'm glad he's met his match, to be honest.
Well, that's what I said.
Yeah,
I said, you get a bell, I'm getting a bell back.
He loves the sound of his own voice. Never mind.
Yeah, it was quite funny. One of the shows we were on, he went off on a tangent like he does. And one of the comments was like, let Natalie get a word in edgewise, Phil.
That was me.
I was like, yes.
Phil Covell, was it? And I think I've heard of him. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, never gets boring, does it, really?
No. That's going to haunt me forever now, isn't it?
People, check it out.
It's going to haunt us forever, that clip.
Just brilliant. I love that. Natalie, thank you. People at home, thank you very, very much for having the patience. And you can wake up now. Get yourself a Horlicks. And I really do. I appreciate everyone that's been on. Appreciate you, Natalie. Love you to bits. More clued up, sensitive. You know, you're a very sensitive person, for a nice way. You know, you're kind of, you know, you're aware of people and how they are, and you know, which is a big thing. You know, being able to read people, and I think that's wonderful. You know, yeah, just like really nice person.
Thank you.
I'm thankful to have you on the show. I really am. I'm trying to tell you that.
Even when it goes wrong.
Even when it goes wrong. And I wanted to also thank Pete as well for coming on. If I did say something out of turn, I do apologize, Pete. I can come across as being a bit, you know, but I don't mean it. I really don't mean it. You know, I just sort of try and get a bit more than perhaps, you know, I can normally get. But other than that, no, people, thank you. Take care. And I shall call it. Thank you, Natalie.
See you. Good night.
Oh, I pressed the wrong one. Would you believe it? I always do that one.